Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to GeoHug. So I'm Just from Prospectors and CoreSafe, and I'm your virtual host. So this week's rockstar is Tanya Matveeva. So Tanya's a geologist. She's worked on several exploration projects around the world for companies like BHP. And since learning about blockchain technology, Tanya's realized its potential for the mining industry and is working on facilitating communication between technology creators and the industry professionals. So I'm super grateful that Tanya's joined us today to give us a quick intro into this technology and how it's very much underused so far. So thank you so much, Tanya, and over to you.
Very excited to speak to Australia audience and whoever else is joining you from around the world. Like Jessica mentioned, I am a geologist, and why on earth will I be interested in blockchain? But obviously, since you are here, some other people in geology and in mining are also interested in blockchain, and I hope I can explain to you why I became interested in it, and maybe will help you to be more interested in it, because I'm a real blockchain believer. Blockchain is like a religion, and a lot of people say, you're either believe it or you kind of live it. So I'm on the believer kind of spectrum. Actually, my first geological job was with BHP. My dream job, absolutely. I'm from Russia. That's the thing here. I don't even know what it's called. A scarf. And I started working in Moscow for BHP, and we did a lot of exploration in Russia and in Kazakhstan. And I was lucky to have visited Olympic Dam and explored in that area for iron oxide copper gold deposits. It was all the rage at the time. We did also exploration in Russia for variety of different mineralization styles, and it was like really great. I worked with wonderful people there and traveled. And then I moved to Germany for a while, where I was just a housewife. And then I moved to Canada, where I lived for 11 years. And in Canada, I worked for a consultancy, and there I worked on exploration project for diamond exploration. And so I will start my presentation now. So welcome to Blockchain on the Rocks today. Since it's Friday evening for you, it's Friday very early morning for me. But that's good to have something different. Okay, and now my thing would not swap. Okay, how about that? Okay. So, for this diamond exploration project in Canada, I was the office rat. I didn't actually work in the field, but was not too sad about it, because diamond exploration in north of Canada is in the beginning, it's all till sampling. It's literally just digging up the bags of dirt and then sending them to the lab. And from the lab comes the data for diamond indicator minerals. So on that one year when I worked there, we had 7,000 samples sent to the lab. And so then the Excel spreadsheet started to arrive from the lab with all the data for the samples, and each sample has so many grains, and then some of the grains will have their chemistry analyzed. And my, data files just started swelling completely uncontrollably, and there were so multiple copies and everything. And I thought, no, I'm going to try and put it in the proper database. At the time, there was no Acquire. I just did my own database in Microsoft Access. It took me a month to put everything in order. I'm very grateful that my management at the time allowed me to spend that effort to do it. But after that, it was just a completely different exercise of how to manage data. I was able to select data in my ArcView from a particular area and then pick them out. They're automatically highlighted in my Access database, and then I could run, chemistry analysis just for these, samples. So it was just a completely different level of how we could use our information. And so since then, I became a big believer in relational databases for management of data. And so I lived happily ever after and worked with many relational databases. I then worked on a big project for evaluation of the resources of shale gas with Alberta Geological Survey. There it's all put in a very fancy database called Petra. It's oil and gas data, completely mind-blowing systems, but which I already did not create. I was just a user. But anyway, I kind of thought, yeah, database is the way to manage the data. It not only eliminates errors, because I would set up the criteria of which data, is passable and which is, outside of the potential limits. So that helped a lot, like with the coordinates, for example, mistakes, none of my samples ended up in Australia. They all stayed in Canada. So databases, data management, did quite a lot of that. And when I already moved to UK, where I again worked for a consultancy, I kind of jumped over the whole Africa bit, but if you, I will probably talk about that a bit later. I was on a Christmas break in somebody's house, and I picked up this book, and it talked big data, and I read about this big data and how it's used, and I was absolutely fascinated by the insights we can get from the data we don't even think are relevant. And somewhere there they mentioned blockchain, and they talked about, what it does. And I became completely hooked, because I realized the blockchain is this next step to remove the human impact on the data. Really, machines are much better at managing data than humans are. This is not our strong point, especially not my strong point. I'm lacking attention to the detail. I like to, go quick. And so I started learning about it about 2 and a bit years ago. And at the time, there was not much in the industry in general, but soon after I learned of the first case of the blockchain in mining, and I will come to it. But I started kind of following the technology and what is happening. So I will stop here briefly. Of course, I'm a geologist. I'm not a blockchain programmer. I do not do Python or whatever other programming language some in the audience might. But to me, it's just this principle of data management via the machine rather than the human, impact. Remove. That's what I kind of feel. So what is the difference, blockchain versus the regular centralized database? Until now, we've been using centralized databases. Yeah, I managed my database for my diamond exploration project. I was the administrator. I was in full control of everything. So if I make a mistake, that's it. There is no way to check unless somebody comes in and does the audit, etc. Or even if I willfully change the data, for whatever reason, to cover up a mistake or maybe to sell a project, it would be very difficult to find out. So blockchain, by definition, is called a distributed ledger. So what does it mean, distributed? The copy of the database, the exact copy, appears simultaneously on all the computers that are involved in the network. So blockchain is an instrument for networks. It specifically is an instrument for networks of participants who do not always trust each other. They are transacting something, be it money, be it some digital data, and they want to be sure that one person gives to another is indeed true and correct. So blockchain achieves this by essentially 2 things. First, every member, every participant within the blockchain system has a copy or exact same copy of the database. So this way it is distributed. And the second, all the transactions on the blockchain are encoded with this special secret code, so that you can verify that the information, later you can verify that the information that has been, passed is exactly this piece. It is done through an instrument that is called hashing, and I will talk a little bit about it later. But what does this, system achieve then, when everybody has the copy of exact same data, and also each transaction is secure? What blockchain does, it eliminates the middleman. This is why Bitcoin worked as it did. So the first application of the blockchain technology, although technology appeared earlier, and this hashing was used even earlier before, but Satoshi Nakamoto, which is this fictional character, nobody knows who that is, and if that's even one person or a group of people, or where they are, but there was this famous white paper published online, not too long ago, 2011, I don't remember, something like that. And so he proposed to use this blockchain technology for digital currency. And so the Bitcoin was born. So he proposed the idea of Bitcoin. And what Bitcoin does, you can send money to somebody anywhere in the world without a bank. And then it grew and it grew and it grew, and it is what it is now. And I just recently read on LinkedIn that if you invested $1,000 in different entities, for example, if you invested in Tesla, you will get that much. I remember if you invested in Facebook, you'll get $9,000. In Twitter, you'll get $3,000. If you invested $1,000 in Bitcoin 10 years ago, today you would have $250 million. Yeah. So should have done it. Anyway, at the time, of course, everybody thought that this was, just a joke and it will not go anywhere. Well, it went very far. Now, a lot of central banks are creating their own digital currencies. There are other blockchain platforms like Ethereum that also offer digital currencies, and many, many others. Then, of course, there was boom and bust. So it definitely is technology in the making. But to me, I think you cannot go wrong because the principle is firm. It is a secure transaction of the data. And where do we need the secure transaction of the data in our industry? I can think of many applications, and this is something that I've been doing very actively for the last few months. Is I was kind of looking in other industries, what are they doing, and then trying to find similarities with the exploration and mining to understand how do we adapt this technology to our needs. Okay. All right, let's talk a little bit about hashing here, because it is fascinating. And this is something you can actually try out yourself, and it's fun. So hash is this secret code that is assigned first to every piece of information that gets onto the blockchain network. So every piece of information is transformed into a set of numbers and letters of a certain length. A very popular algorithm. There are many, and they have been used, like I mentioned before. They've been used by an American National Security Agency and many others. So that's a very common cryptographic thing. So what they take any piece of information and they convert it into this string of letters and numbers. So just for fun, you can go online and check what is the hash of your name, for example. You can just go and say SHA-256 is one of the algorithms, SHA-256, and then type in your name, and it will give you a string of letters and numbers, which is exactly related to your name. If you then change one letter in your name, this number of letters and numbers, this hash, will be completely different, unrelated. So the trick is that, so I hashed for, just for fun, my logo. I download the PDF file and I got a hash for it. So I can check 3 years later. If I download the PDF file again, the hash should be exactly the same set of numbers. Now, if I change something in this file, it will be a completely different hash. There is no way for me to figure out what the original file was from the hash, but if it is exact same file, then the hash will be exactly the same. And this is how blockchain also allows transparency. So it can verify that it is exactly that same entity without actually disclosing what the entity is. And this is another huge property, important property of blockchain that is used. This is how they, do now the voting on blockchain, and many there are these digital passports where they can verify that it is this person without actually disclosing who that person is. So that's a very important property as well. So I encourage you, just for fun, to go and find this SHA-256 vehicle algorithm making machine online, and you will be able to hash whatever you want and check that it actually truly works. So I was talking about, the properties of blockchain technology. The most important thing for everybody to realize, and I assume people who are online here today, they already joined because they understand that blockchain is not just cryptocurrency. Although the majority of users right now is the variety of cryptocurrencies here, Bitcoin, Ethereum, there's Ripple there, and there are many, many others. But I've been listening to these presentations on LinkedIn, very short, from Andy Martin, who works with IBM, and he's like a blockchain philosopher, if you like. He talks about the properties of blockchain, etc. And he coined this term that blockchain is a governance technology. It really is a technology to manage the flow of information in the system. So as a governance technology, then blockchain is applied to smart contracts. So people have used smart contracts before, but blockchain allows, much more secure transactions, and again, removes this intermediary from the transactions. Like, you don't need the bank, or you don't need some other certifying authorities, because you can always go back and find the record of this transaction. It is used for cryptocurrencies. It's used for digital certificates. So like I mentioned, each document that goes onto blockchain, it's, first of all, it is hashed. It's created this digital fingerprint of any document or anything that goes onto blockchain. And then it is used for tokens, which is something that I haven't heard before, the term. So basically, it's a representation of some asset. You can tokenize a house. So you can break the house into 10,000 units and sell individually each of these units. So it's very good for investment in that way. It's just easier to break the object into tiny little pieces, and you don't have to do a lot of paperwork to certify that, this person owes, this tiny little piece of this house, for example. So here I'm seeing the potential for our industry for investment. If you want to invest into an exploration project, you don't just have an option of buying a share, but you have an option, much faster and easier option, a much more secure option of buying a token. So you're basically like buying a share of this whole, everything that comes from this project in the future, and it is secure to you, and it can be broken down into very, very small bits as required. And another thing that is used now also, you can sell your production, your future production, not as a future contracts, which require a lot of, legal work, etc., but again, as these tokens on blockchain, and this is what is being used. So story of how blockchain started to penetrate the mining industry. The most common use right now is supply chain tracking. It still is the most popular use of blockchain technology for now. So what is supply chain tracking? The producers of the cars and mobile phones, etc., are suffering from the bad press. They say that the cobalt that you put in your phone is mined by the children in Congo. The diamonds that you're putting in your jewelry are coming from, blood diamonds in Angola. We don't want that. We want to be sure that the metals or stones that we are using are clean. So this is where blockchain technology first came in. So basically, it is not in the interest of the mining industry per se. As a miners, we know where our stuff comes from, but it comes as a push from the consumer who wants to know where the stuff is coming from. So I, for example, worked in Rwanda on a tin project, and there is a lot of slave labor there. There are like military cooperatives that are making, locals work in the mines, and there are children working in the mines. And the most common thing that now goes on blockchain is cobalt in Congo, because 60% of the world cobalt, which is essential for electrical vehicle batteries, 60% of cobalt comes from Congo, and some of it, cobalt, not all, but some of it is mined in a very horrible artisanal mines. And so the major producers don't want that, and they then make mining companies, the bigger mining companies, to implement blockchain technology right from the mine side and all through the chain to ascertain that this cobalt does not come from a bad mine. How they do it is a fascinating story in itself. I encourage you to visit and see some of my recorded presentations, but they use every new technology possible, from face recognition of a particular miners who work on mine site to QR codes on the bags of the concentrate, to tracking using IoT devices of all the trucks that are moving from the mine site to the concentrator. So there is a lot of technology included there, but it is being done basically without going into too much detail. So this is the names of the many startups from the top one, MindSpider. This is the one that I met first. They are out of Berlin, but actually started by a Canadian chap. MineHub started in Canada, now most active in UK, and they did the first sale for BHP of iron ore on blockchain. Oh, by the way, I should mention that BHP just yesterday announced that they're very proud to be included in a top 50 blockchain implementers according to Forbes. So this is great news because a mining company is in a top 50 in blockchain technology companies. So that's wonderful. Circular does a lot of work there based out of UK. And they trace a variety of different metals and also mica. And they also do nickel, and they also do tin. Artus Systems, I think they also do cobalt in Congo, and probably some others. So there are many of these startup companies that are doing a track and trace application on variety of blockchain platforms. Didn't mention that, there is not just one blockchain system. There are different systems that different companies implement as well. So it's a whole big world that I have been kind of exploring for the last couple of years. A big company also now very experienced, and it is again originated in Australia. Eva Ledger, wonderful lady at the head, Leanne Camp. I highly encourage you to go and check them out. She is a very inspirational speaker. She started by implementing blockchain for diamond tracking. This is a fascinating technology. They put a diamond on blockchain. Like I said, first of all, it has always to be, you have to convert your physical good into a digital good. And the way they do it with diamond, they take a rough diamond and they do a 3D scan of this rough diamond, and that creates this unique digital certificate, this unique digital document. And then they track this diamond from the mine all the way to the jewelry shop on a blockchain that they have created. And then they expand it into many other areas. And I think this is something that I have a concern that a lot of companies that do start in a mining world and then jump to other industries that are just more amenable or easier. So I'm saying, come on, miners, pick up. You're losing good people who start there and they just go somewhere where it's just easier to do. Similar for diamond tracking, De Beers and Allrosa for the first time actually joined their efforts, and they are both using a platform called Tracer to prove the provenance of their diamonds. I also thought, I read a book about diamonds, a very good book, and diamond theft is a huge issue in many operations. And I'm sure that another incentives for these companies to use blockchain is to reduce theft. Because if you don't have this certificate, you will have to sell your diamond somehow illegally. It loses its legality. So I imagine that helps them eliminate or reduce theft. So I've mentioned that BHP now got into the first top 50 of the blockchain enterprise. But other big ones are also there. Rio Tinto is selling their iron ore on a blockchain, and so does Vale. So most of it actually is in Australia, from Western Australia, from Pilbara going to China. So what it allows them is to track their shipment and also get a faster payment. So that's also a very common blockchain application through the logistical chain. And Rio Tinto also just recently announced that they're also tracking their aluminium on blockchain as well. So the big ones are looking into it as well. But I think, I guess the purpose of what I'm trying to do is to make medium and smaller size mining companies to look into that and see how they can benefit from the blockchain technology. Of course, maybe in Russian, I don't want to miss that, but it's really is an exciting announcement. Nornickel was working together with IBM and a company out of Switzerland called Atomize. They are tokenizing their production. So that's the first I heard, and I hope to have them present my webinar end of March. So you're welcome to join about that. So this is yet another application of a blockchain in a mining industry. And Nornickel, of course, in Russia is a major nickel, platinum, palladium, and copper producer. Very, very big, exciting deposits there. Fascinating stuff. So in terms of where blockchain did not penetrate yet mining industry, and maybe somebody in the audience is working into it, I was thinking the one that kind of is right on the surface, our licenses, our exploration license, our mining license is our real estate. So it's just crying for application of blockchain. It will make it so much easier to transfer the license from one to another, to manage the license, from the government side. So I actually talked, the reason I have here British Columbia in Canada has a very advanced mining licensing system. I'm sure in Australia, at least in some areas, you also have it where you have an online staking and then online management of all the licenses. So I think British Columbia is probably one of the first, places where it can be implemented. I'm talking now to their authorities to see, if they will at least look into that. So maybe in Australia, I think that's another jurisdiction where it can realistically be done, because you need to have your data, ready. It needs to be digital. It needs to be in a decent kind of state. And other things that I kind of mentioned through my, blabbing here is I just want people to kind of start looking, people in mining industry, people in exploration, to start looking and thinking, okay, so I know what the properties of blockchain are. Where can I, use it? Where can we start using them? So like I mentioned, maybe we can crowdfund the project now because it will be, logistically much easier. Where do we have the lack of trust between the mining company and their client? If the mining company is sending concentrate to the processing plant, wherever you have wherever you have a certificate, a paper certificate, that you are passing from one party to another, this is where blockchain came in to make this transition faster and cheaper. Managing subcontractors, that's one of the applications of blockchain technology that I didn't think before. I just heard a presentation by IBM, and they said the company that puts out tenders, for example, and many companies then come in and do their proposals. Every time these companies have to collect tons of certificates to present to the potential client. This can be done much faster if this information is for once securely stored on a blockchain. Then they don't need to source this information again and again and again. Logistics, this is what happens now with iron ore sales. It is already happening, but let's think of moving it into smaller enterprises, not only the big ones, because the technology itself is not expensive. You do not need a supercomputer to run it. You do not need to be a computer whiz. You just need to find the right company who will help you implement it. The way I think about it, it's a bit like, doing your 3D modeling for the resource evaluation. Before, it might have seemed overwhelming, oh, we don't have the computer power, blah, blah, blah. But now we're all using it. So same thing, we don't need to create our own, data mine. It has been created. We just need to find the right provider. And data management, of course, my favorite topic, obviously, because this is where it started. And I'm thinking that we can manage our exploration data more secure on blockchain and faster. We can do this digital identity for a competent person. You have the qualified person, a competent person in Australia for signing up your JORC reports. This information can be stored your certificates can be stored on blockchain and then can be easily retrieved. And the whole history of this competent person, what he signed, et cetera, can be easily accessible, of course, within the privacy, limitations, etc. For due diligence, if you have, you're doing due diligence of the project and you have to verify, so many documents again and again and again for each potential investor has to do exact same piece of work. This, I think, can be done, faster, better, cheaper, etc. And tender, I already mentioned tender for a company that has to look for many subcontractors. All right, so a little bit of my company plug. So what do I do with some of volunteers who are working with me? So we are all mining industry professionals with various degree of experience in the digital data world. Some are coders, some are data analysts. Our offer to the mining industry, we will help you navigate the blockchain universe. It is a complex world with many people providing many services, where to go, what to do. This is where we're hoping to help you bridge the gap between the mining world and blockchain world. The language in our two worlds is very different. The mining language is well familiar to all of us. The blockchain language, you will stumble on many terms. We're hoping to be your guides in this blockchain world. So what I've been doing in the last 6 months, I organized a group, Blockchain in Mining, on LinkedIn. I invite you to join my group. And I also have been running these webinars on blockchain and mining once a month. I present various blockchain technology providers and mining companies who are already using them. Everything is available. You're welcome to see all the recordings and join us in future adventures.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I know how early it is over there, so I really appreciate you coming on to talk to us. But yes, if anyone has any questions, like Tanya said, there's the group, and yeah, you can reach out anytime as well, and I can help connect you or anything like that if you have any questions. But yeah,
thank you very much. Thank you very much for your questions and for your comments. I'm glad you think it's fascinating. Yay, it is. It really is.